Hey, what's up? Today we're going to be talking about the explosive power of gray markers. What I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be using a 50% gray marker, and I'm just going to start to lightly sketch out what is going to be an owl. Now, why do we use gray markers and what is so special about them? Well, one of the main reasons why I use gray markers is when I'm starting a sketch and I don't really want to commit and I'm drawing something very loosely. Gray markers do an incredible job of, one, reducing the intimidation factor of using something that's just a little light, because when you start to draw and you want to kind of lay out your proportions and you want to lay out some shapes, it allows you to commit or not commit, or to draw light enough so that if you need to go back and then reinforce it with your darker lines, you don't have to really make sure that it's all completely perfect. It's your time for you to be able to lightly sketch out lines and just plan out your drawing without overcommitting to the drawing itself. Now, I want to really touch on another point, or the same point that we're talking about before, is just the fear factor of using something that's really dark. How do you feel like when you start to use something like a permanent marker and you start to draw with it? Obviously, you can't erase. And what happens? Typically, what happens is that you get really anxious because you want your drawing to be perfect and you want your drawing to be correct. And then if you're drawing with a permanent marker and something that is black, then you're overcommitted and you're not able to correct it. Now, when I draw with a light gray marker, now I would even argue that the gray marker I'm using now, which is like the 50%, is still maybe a little bit too dark. You can go to like 30%. 30% is actually a really good number. It's not too dark, it's not too light, because you're still going to be able to see the value of the gray. You can make some mistakes and come back and correct it, and that's really what's advantageous of going with something that's a little bit lighter. For me, because I practice so much, I'm not as fearful about darker lines. Because it's still light enough for me to experiment and just to have some fun. And that's another thing, because when you're practicing, you don't want things to be completely perfect, because it's really just your journey. When you're starting out and you're just beginning to draw, you don't have to worry about the perfection. And not worrying about that perfection is what makes it so powerful. Having this medium of gray and taking away that anxiety that you have with trying to make it perfect is what gives you the power of experimentation and exploration. I can't tell you how much I love this process. Seriously. I mean, this is the time where you can just create some rhythmic tones and just experiment with the direction of your line work without having to have it too aggressive with the color tones. And then if you want, if I drew this in something that's a little bit lighter, like I mentioned, the 30% or even 20%, I can always build up the tones and the values with more gray. And so my suggestion is to get a full set of gray markers so that you can start light and gradually build the value of your drawing, of your sketch. And as you're going through that, you can always go and make some corrections and tighten things up, which is what I'm going to do with this owl in the next video when I show you this process. And then you can start adding some colors and make it a little bit more interesting and just have really fun exploring. Now I'm just establishing a little bit more rhythm through the neck, giving that direction to where the feathers are, and just defining some shapes here. And as I go through and just practice the direction, I may come back and do another drawing saying, hey, I don't feel like this thing worked out the way I wanted it to, and I might change a little bit of the technique. And that's what allows you to enjoy using these kind of markers, because once again, you're not having to commit. You're just practicing and then just doing a sketch for about 5 minutes, and then you can come back and do another round of sketching. So bottom line, give this a shot. Get yourself some gray markers and experience that power to experiment and not have to commit. And we'll see you next time on Driven to Draw. Have a good one.